North Kitsap School District was a pilot district back in 2012, and at some point for us, things began to go pretty smoothly, thanks to great work by our Teachers Association, school board, administrators. But we had started to spend a little bit too much time admiring our forms and processes, which are very important, but it's a little like when you have that important deadline, and then you suddenly realize what's most important is to alphabetize your vinyl collection for us. So we wanted to shift our focus away from our forms and processes back to what we know is really impactful, which is the growth for our students and for our staff. So we want to share with you today and in our breakout session, 2 ways we've been able to do that, and also how we've been able to stop looking at TPEP as its own initiative and really as the context in which all of our work gets done. So maybe like every district office, we have a nickname. In North Kitsap, we are the Hill, and we actually do come down from the hill periodically, at least once a week we do, because we have a visit we do with our schools. And we observe in common areas, we have thorough conversations with school staff about key issues, and we also spend time observing in classrooms. And we have a very clever name for this visit. It's called a deep dive. So the key thing that we found is that this is a leverage point for us. There was some apprehension though with deep dives, as you can imagine. Folks from the school were wondering what the people from the Hill might find and what changes might be demanded as a result. And I'll say, fortunately, I give credit to our executive director, Jeff Sweeney, who'll be with us later. He insisted that we act with utmost courtesy, respect, that we listen much more than we talk, and that when we have questions, that we ask them in an open-ended way and not loaded with opinion or judgment. So back to TPEP and how we've been able to use this as a leverage point for rater agreement. So what we realized is that in our deep dive conversations after we visit classrooms, during that debrief, we're talking about classroom instruction through the lens of our instructional framework, Marzano in our case. So our next step was to expand the guest list. So we invited principals from other schools to join in that deep dive process, not just for the classroom observation, but for that whole conversation with the key school staff so that they could really start learning from their colleagues. And probably my favorite part of the deep dive with the principal there is when they're asked how they would approach a conversation with the teacher we just observed. And in that way, we're really able to not only calibrate our ratings, but in a sense, we're beginning to calibrate also our conversations. So that is our first area we're going to talk about. Our second area is related to our professional learning focus as a school district. And we identified some key areas based on our own experience and based on really research, not just from Marzano, but from other researchers like John Hattie. And we came up with 4 areas we wanted to focus on. In hindsight, we might choose 1 or 2. 4 is a lot for a year. But we focused on teacher efficacy, goals and objectives, academic discourse, and differentiation for this school year. We formed teams. Each team had teachers, principals, and district leaders, and those teams prepared professional learning modules that then were provided to our leadership team. And then after those were provided to our leadership team, the idea was that they would filter back to each school so that we started to see some continuity between our school professional learning plans and our district professional learning plans. Again, this became a leverage point for rater agreement because what we believe is that with increased expertise, all the way from our teachers down to our district office, that we're able to create better conversations in more focused areas within our framework. So those are 2 areas we've been able to shift, but I also want to state that we do have really excellent forums. In fact, the best around. They are all that, and we're still very proud of them. Thank you.